Ja, het ruikt lekker, fuck it. Hey! If you wanted to impress a chick, that's what you would do. Good day! Welcome back to the channel. Wessel here, and today I am passionate about preservation. This is, after all, the motorcycle preservation channel, is it not? So today I'm passionate, as you might guess, with Yamaha. So some of you might know Yamaha as a music company. I'm not sure if you would be surprised to know, I was quite surprised that they were also an archery company. They had the archery division from the 60s to the early 2000s. They won 6 gold medals. Yes. Quite interesting. So they are also the world's largest musical instrument manufacturer. Not sure if you knew that. That's evident from the logo, the tuning forks. And obviously I have to wear the cap because I am today very passionate about Yamaha. So Yamaha started in the late 1800s, 1887. I can't pronounce the name. I can't even attempt to. My brain gets a knot thinking about the name. Original name basically roughly translated to Japan Musical Instruments. So they were known for making pipe organs. I had to go Google it. Apparently that's very similar to what I remember from a church, the big loud thing in the back there. They went into the piano business, I think in the 1900s. A few years later, apparently it was a great achievement. They built their first grand piano. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but yes, they were known for pianos. Would it surprise you to know that in 1987, 100 years later, after the company was founded, they were renamed after the founder, Yamaha Incorporated. In fact, that would be 30 years after Yamaha Motor Corporation was founded. As I mentioned about the logo, that is tuning forks used for tuning instruments, I assume. I'm not sure, it's tuning forks for music. I was quite old when I first noticed that or realized that fact. It was quite surprising to me. So where does the Yamaha motorcycles come from? Ironically enough, it seems like many motorcycle or automotive companies from the time, it was due to a war. It was the World War II. In this World War, Yamaha Musical Instrument Company did a lot of work with metallurgical properties. I had to go Google it. I assume that was for the organ and not the great piano, which does not use that technology. After the war, Germany ceased to exist like we know it. And from what I gather, intellectual property becomes public domain to a degree. And a motorcycle, which the Germans built, DKW, zullen ze Afrikaans, die Duitse kakwa, DKW RT125. The name, but that motorbike became public domain. BSA from Britain, they built it. I think they built it under the Bantam name. Would it surprise you to know that Harley Davidson also built the same bike under the name Hummer? It was a 125 two-stroke. In fact, actually, as I mentioned, the DKW RT125 two-stroke, single cylinder. Yamaha did exactly the same. They call it the Red Dragonfly. They built it under the name JA1, which I just assumed is for Yamaha, the first bike they built. And in the first year of production was 1954, and they built, ironically enough, at least to Wikipedia, 125 125cc models. They had very great success, and due to this fact, in 1955, the Yamaha Motor Corporation were founded. And as I mentioned previously, ironically enough, that was over 30 years before the actual original Yamaha music instrument company was actually founded as a Yamaha. After the JA1, Yamaha moved on to a JA2, which were a slightly bigger version of it. I only think 4cc displacement more and a few other changes. They then proceeded to bring out, from what I gather, their own design, which was a YD1, which were a 250cc single cylinder two-stroke. And I can't just think about the irony that this must have been the first YZ as I know it in my brain, 250 single cylinder two-stroke. If we fast forward to the 70s, in the 70s, the motorcycle still looked fairly outdated in my opinion. It was the older style look, and that also evolved eventually to a DT50M. M, from what I gather, stood for monoshock. They went away with the dual rear shocks to a single shock and a swing arm. They sold that from 78 to 81. They had a 19-inch front rim and a 17-inch rear rim. They had very great success apparently through this time. The RD road version were founded or conceptualized after this, and they sold the RD50M, which is not the RD that we know, what I remember from a kid. It was also the older style rounder shape, but it was ironically that the DT came first and the RD afterwards. If we fast forward a few more years to 81, you got the DT50MX. I can just assume that they thought it's going to be a more motocross. I just know a MX bike as a motocross bike, but as we've seen, the M already stood for mono rear shock, so I'm not exactly sure what the X is. Probably trail. They originally were air cooled as well, still around the shape. That was the early 80s model, and I think from 83 they went liquid cooled, a more square shape, a high rise tank or a bit higher tank. And let me just switch you around. So here we have it. This is the DT50MX. So this brings back a lot of nostalgia. If I think back to when these were affordable and still acquirable, I was about 15 years old, and it was around 2000. My dad said if I want to have a motorcycle, I must save up for myself. So I did start doing that. I was in standard 5, starting to deliver newspapers for Die Burger, which roughly translates to the citizen in Afrikaans. And I saved up, I think, around about 50 Rand a week until I got, I think these were for sale for about 1,500 Rand when they came out. Or not came out, when they were sold here. I assume they were all grey imports. I know Pocket Rocket, the company in Cape Town at that stage, brought in a lot of the two-stroke bikes. But yeah, so for the 1.5 you could pick up a little bit of one that needed a bit of work, and then for about 3.5 back then, late 90s, early 2000s, these were run off the mill. You could see them everywhere. At our school where I were in Parow, there was, I think at a good time, about 5 to 10 parked in front of the school. Everybody had one, everybody wanted one, and it was a great bike to learn on. The DT comes very close to my heart, and I actually have to turn my cap around for this one. As I mentioned, I was high school, Limp Bizkit was going, Blink 82 were out already. I think Avril Lavigne weren't even born yet. So it was a great time. It was a great time to see the era, let me put it like that, to be part of the era. And we had some great motorcycles. So the DT as such is very close to my heart. As I mentioned, I learned a lot of life lessons. As I mentioned, now you could buy one for cheap. We soon realized that if you need to do roadworthy, for example, you need a tire that's going to pass roadworthy. So back then, you would swap a friend's tire just to go do roadworthy, or if a friend's dad managed to buy him a chain and sprocket, you would get dibs. Who gets the old chain and sprocket, so you can get to school on Monday or go visit the chick. Which brings me to another point. The DT50 learned me a lot of life lessons. It learned me about saving money, the impact of your decisions. If you crash it, you'll have to go fix it, as well as if it enabled you freedom. It enabled you to be able to have a girlfriend that stays 10 kilometers away. You start learning, what does money mean? How can you get there? How much petrol is going to cost? You have to put two-stroke in the bike. Is it worth visiting the chick? So the running cost of these bikes are quite low. As I mentioned, now we were high school like this. Let me backtrack a bit. As I said, Africa, you have to be 16 at least to be legally allowed to ride a motorcycle up to 125cc without a pillion on a 50cc or 125. But if you get a license, you are allowed to lift on most 125s here. But anyway, so we did lift on the 50cc's, although there was no provisions made for a second person on a motorbike. We probably sometimes got up to 3 people if needed. So as I mentioned about the costing, we were high school lighties. We did not have money. The bikes basically always ran. And I'm shocked thinking back at how little we knew about motorbikes and how reliable they actually were. Definitely the irony of a two-stroke not being reliable. It was definitely, my opinion changed completely about it. Thinking back, that we completely didn't know what we're doing, and we always managed the road for years and years and years. Another tidbit about it, as I mentioned now, it allowed you freedom to go visit a girl 10 kilometers away or so. It would become a thing. The two-stroke smell. The chick would know it, and she would know which smells nice. So the little hack we had was we would go down to the Shell in Parow North, the far one, and buy the outboard two-stroke. I think it was as well the first synthetic. I remember it was blue. The first full synthetic two-stroke on the market. I remember it was a bit more expensive, but it had a nicer smell. And it also, the myth was that your bike would be a lot more reliable if you run the blue, nice smelling two-stroke. So who buys the Yamaha DT now? I think the market has changed. I haven't seen any lighties on them riding around at all. I can't remember when last I've seen a lighty riding around on one. The market now, I think, is more people that has the passion, that wants to carry it forward. People like the owner of this bike, which I know he spent a lot of money getting it in the condition it is in today. He bought it from another friend. So ironically enough, the bike's starting to get a history. You know which bike were owned by which guy. And I did mention the guy. I'm going to go video his bike as well, which is now this bike, which is the previous owner. It's crazy. So I think since high school, the market has changed. The nostalgia has grown. People want to relive that moment. They want to have the Limp Bizkit look and go again. They want to be in that moment again. And here I am 25 years later, passionate about exactly that point. I'm passionate about my first motorbike. So the DT50, not sure if you got it, but I saved up for those years. And my first motorbike, where my passion started, was the DT50. As I mentioned, it was so much more than transport. It allowed you to get out of the house and get out there and experience the world. I learned so many life lessons specifically about it, good and bad. As I mentioned, there was a lot of things about costing, sprockets and chain and fuel and tires. At a young age, you start to learn the value of money and what does it mean. So there you have it. It's liquid cooled, as I mentioned. At least all the models with the higher tank and the square screen cover were liquid cooled. At least all the DT50s, as I remember them, were liquid cooled. There were 1 to 5 and different variants that were still air cooled, which were quite prominent from the fins on the head. You'll see the radiator here. From what I remember, they had a nice radiator brace underneath. So if your bike tipped over, it did not break. Radiator, kickstart only. A very distinctive rear light. We always joked and said it almost looked like a pimple popping out, especially if you were a high school lighty. These indicators were known to break either when you swing out your leg or coming back or having a friend on the back or maybe 3. You could maybe even try and fit 4 if you're really brave enough. You'll see the very distinctive look you have here. This is, if I see this look, I know exactly I'm looking at a DT. The square lights, and I'm pretty sure the 1 to 5 looked very similar, even though I never owned a DT 1 to 5 in this shape and model, but I did have the RZ 1 to 5 eventually. The road version of these were called the RZ. Hi again, sorry, I forgot one of the most important features the DT50 had. Just while I'm there, sneak peek of another bikes that we might get the chance to view. It's a friend of mine's bikes, as I mentioned. The biggest feature that a DT50 had was the cigarette stash under the seat. It was the OEM toolkit. And as you see, there's no tools in there. I can't remember ever seeing any with tools, but that's where you would hide your cigarettes. So your parents didn't know that you're riding motorbike and smoking. What a time it was to be alive. So there we have it. As I mentioned, the owners these days are mostly collectors, people of passion. Just a simple bit about that. If you want one, you have to build one. They do not build these anymore. Production ran, so 81 to 96, production ran for 15 years. And as I mentioned, there's none, in my opinion, left original. That's nice, at least not affordably. Even secondhand, as this one, they are sought after now by the people wanting them at the idea of the DT50. Picked them up about 15, a bit rough, and paperwork being an issue. And they do go north of 30, still rough, and 50k is probably now the mark where you get a nice one as you would want it, at least to have and show your friends. As I would guess, this model would be probably run about that price. But I'll show you just one little thing I know about this bike. As I mentioned, it's my friend's bike. He rebuilt it and he's very meticulous. The cover on the ignition is a gel sticker, and he struggled to find it, so he had it custom made. Just look at that. So that's just one tidbit to show you of the detail. I know for a fact that the paint color was another issue. To get the exact paint color, he had to respray the tank, even though there was nothing wrong with the respray, just to get the right match of the paint color. It had almost that plastic look, and it was very hard to get that matte plastic look correct. So yes, that is the DT50. Can you hoon it? That's the point I'm trying to make. It is very seldom that somebody will let you ride it or use it as it become a collector item. But my friend said it is a DT. We can do what we want. I forgot to mention, while the Yamaha were doing their thing, Honda came out with a MB50, which were the RD50's version, the road version, and it had a MT50, which were the DT's off-road version, and they were running the production around the same time, and it had a very distinctive, at least the MB, very distinctive front wheel with spokes. If anybody's out there that's willing to let me make a video about the MT50 or MB50, let me know. I would gladly come and view your motorbike. Thanks for tuning in, and please click and subscribe. Being able to put the content out there and getting a platform to put it there for preservation for myself and for maybe for other people to experience the same allows the channel to grow and me to do this. So please like, click and subscribe, and thanks. Cheers. Let's hoon a bit. DT50. Okay, let's roll out, gang. Yo. Ek het eerlik waar gedoog hy weer kompressie. Ek het amper 2 keer geskop. Okay, laat hier 'n dalk 'n bier. Woo! Ja, brings back memories. It's not my bike, so I'm not going to do the clutch trick, but we used to. Let me just do it one for demonstration purposes. But you would get it back in the power band, but you would burn up your clutch. Oh man, this just brings back memories. And I'm a big guy. I'm a 1.9, 1.92 I think, or 1.87, I can't remember. I'm not sure if I'm shrinking as I'm getting older or what's happening. Yeah man, this is so nice. Look, there's the Triumph coming. Woo! Woo! Let me do it. Kom Tanny, rijm. Hey! If there was something to put nostalgia out in the air, I wish I could explain the nostalgia I'm feeling now. The sound, the feeling, the rattling, everything. It's got a knobbly tire on there, so there's a slight vibration, but it's actually quite less than I would have thought for a bike with such a 19-inch front wheel, such a big knobbly tire. And I'm guessing the rims are straight and not bent. Woo! Did you hear the double clutch? Yeah. Oh, we're gonna hit a car. Gonna pass it. No, we'll slack down. Oh, he's turning. Oh man. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again. So seeing it's a DT50 with 30,000 kilometers on, the majority of their kilometers were done trawling your local parkie, as they would say, or greenbelt. I see a lot of families. Someone is gonna scowl me now. So let's do a quick turnaround. Seeing this is only 100 kilogram, and we go back over. DT50, the nostalgia is high.